So thank you everybody for joining. I want to share a reminder to join us tomorrow for the Open Knowledge Center demo. That's at 11 o'clock. If you go to our website under News and Events, you can get a link directly to that session. So this webinar will focus on the Avoca Quality Consortium, a biopharma pre-competitive collaboration to share ways in which this unique consortium has helped to deliver clinical trial excellence. We are recording this session so others who could not attend can access it later. All phone lines are muted, and we ask that you please not put your phone on hold because that often causes background music. If you have any questions, you can use the chat or Q&A feature. If you send those questions in, we have someone monitoring that and they can share those questions with me. We do want to hold questions to the end of the session though. My name is Janice Hall and I am a senior consultant working with the Avoca Group for the last 5.5 years. And this webinar is on biopharma pre-competitive collaboration delivering for clinical trial excellence. I'll be briefly sharing background on the Avoca Group and the Avoca Quality Consortium, as well as sharing what is pre-competitive collaboration. I will introduce you to the AQC Knowledge Center and our AHA online community, and I'll explain what those are in a little bit. We'll also share with you data, our analytics on the use of these two platforms so that we can connect the dots and look at what discussions have been occurring in the online community and how they link to the AQC Knowledge Center Library of Leading Practices, specifically around 4 specific topics that have been very active. I'm going to take a few minutes to explain for those on the call who may not yet be familiar with Avoca or with the Quality Consortium to provide some background and context. The Avoca Group is a life sciences consulting firm founded in 1999 and dedicated to improving quality and compliance in the clinical trial execution process. Integrating deep subject matter expertise with industry-leading approaches and technology, we tailor solutions that help companies to build industry-leading quality management, inspection readiness, and effective oversight systems. Through our consulting and research services, we conduct research on key challenges we face within the industry and share our findings at leading conferences. In 2011, our research revealed that there was a divergence in the perception of quality. Specifically, the level of quality that sponsors felt they were getting from providers versus what providers felt they were delivering. These challenges were shared with the FDA, and Avoca was asked by the FDA if we could help overcome those challenges. That was the start of the Avoca Quality Consortium, which is the focus of this session. The Avoca Group also has a third part of the business that is focused on transforming provider qualification via the Diligent Qualification platform. If there is interest in this part of the business, please contact us after this session. Avoca's mission is to have a positive impact on all clinical trials by helping clinical research companies increase quality, ensure compliance, and improve efficiency so that medicines can reach patients faster. The consortium was established in 2011 and has since developed over 450 leading practices for its members. Each member organization receives company-wide access to a comprehensive and proprietary knowledge center containing these leading practices, which includes guidelines, tools, templates, standards, process documents, industry intelligence, as well as AQC research reports and archived webinars such as this one. We develop these leading practices by synthesizing content from a wide range of sources, including donated member materials, which are shared with us confidentially, health authority regulations and guidance documents, expert group and thought leader presentations, and technical papers and blogs. The Avoca Quality Consortium consists of nearly 100 member companies with roughly 70% that are sponsor companies. The member companies include small, medium, and large biopharmaceutical organizations and clinical service providers. If you see your company's name on this slide but don't know how to access the AQC Knowledge Center or the AHA online community, please get in touch with us after today's webinar to request login credentials. If you don't see your company's name on this slide and want to learn more about becoming a member, visit our website or contact us after the webinar, and we'll give you some contact information at the end of the webinar. Now that we've provided the background on Avoca and the AQC, let's look at the concept of pre-competitive collaboration. What is pre-competitive collaboration? It is a term that refers to when competitors share early stages of research that benefit all. It is increasingly accepted as a driver for improved efficiency while simultaneously improving our grasp of increasing complexity. And within the pharma R&D industry, we most definitely are viewing increasing complexity currently and into the future. These kinds of collaborations can be found in many industries. For example, forestry products, the coffee industry, the seafood industry, and water stewardship. And as in the case for the AQC, in the biopharmaceutical industry. You can see some examples here that we have been seeing many pre-competitive consortia in the pharma industry with some of these organizations, and there are more. So why would companies collaborate? Well, they're collaborating to align on challenges their industry is facing, to target advances on specific pre-competitive topics that are important to their stakeholders. This gives them an opportunity to advance, to support regulatory compliance, to move forward on quality and reduce risk, to standardize and drive efficiencies and reduce cost. The benefit to the industry and all participants in the industry is it creates a rising tide that will lift all boats. And that benefit then will drive advancements for all companies. And helping this collaboration helps to achieve the objective to accelerate development of critical medicines for patients. The Avoca Quality Consortium is able to demonstrate this collaborative spirit among the many sponsor and provider organizations via the AQC approach of collaborating to align on and prioritize industry challenges to target through prolific development of industry-leading practices, and through two specific platforms that the AQC offers for pre-competitive sharing, namely the AQC Knowledge Center and the AHA online community. We will share analytics from these two platforms. The AHA online community has many active conversations underway. We will share some of the most active and richest exchanges among members. We will also share the most frequently used leading practices in the library. These two platforms support the application of leading practices to drive clinical trial excellence. This timeline illustrates the AQC's quality journey since it was launched with the sponsorship of Pfizer and Eli Lilly. Each year, the AQC focuses on specific work streams that research key challenges and develop leading practices to overcome those challenges. These leading practices are added to the Knowledge Center, and over the past 7 years, we now have over 450 leading practices for members. Another key milestone was the launch of the AHA online community, which I will share with you in the next few slides. Avoca was asked in one of our annual member meetings if there is a way that AQC members can connect with each other on an ad hoc basis outside of the regularly scheduled meetings that we hold in order to discuss their challenges and share ideas for overcoming those challenges. This triggered the setup of the AHA online community as shown here. While Avoca uses this to share information with AQC members, our members use it to talk to each other. When questions are entered by the AQC members, Avoca watches the activity. If an Avoca subject matter expert can contribute, they will join the conversation. They may also identify any AQC leading practices that are available around that topic. If Avoca is aware of an individual in the AQC community that has expertise on the topic, we will often reach out to ask them to contribute to the discussion. This becomes a place to learn and collaborate and can be a conduit to AQC member tools. The AQC members leverage this community to build their network as well as their knowledge. So the AHA online community has become a pre-competitive collaborative tool. Avoca uses it to communicate to its members, to announce our webinars and meetings, to ask members to share their leading practices with us around specific challenges. We also use it to request peer review of draft materials that we have authored, and also to announce the publishing of new leading practices when they get posted to the Knowledge Center. There are over 1,000 users or registered users in the AHA online community and over 400 conversations by members. Members can follow discussions that are underway based on specific categories that are shown here. The 5 include AHA moments, which are new ideas that are introduced, strategic innovation and clinical trial execution, proactive quality management, provider qualification, and risk assessment and management. The category with the most conversations is proactive quality management, as is shown in green in the pie chart. But you can see that there are other categories that have active discussions underway. The number of users who are active followers across the 5 categories is shown in the pie chart on the right. Members are showing interest in all categories, but the category that has the most number of followers is on proactive quality management, also in green. So let's look at the approach we took for connecting the dots from AQC member discussions and AQC leading practice tool usage. We downloaded analytics from the AHA online community. We extracted all conversations since the launch of the community. We removed all of the Avoca announcements and requests from that list, and then categorized all of the conversations that members were having by topic. There is a wide range of topics that are discussed in the AHA community. We find that as you drill down into the discussions, the following 4 topics are most active in the community and are on challenges associated with trial master files, inspection readiness, risk management, and provider qualification. At an aggregate level, we have the following data for the Knowledge Center, Library of Leading Practices. Over 27 months of activity, there were the following data. So we have over 20,000 documents downloaded. Over 98,000 documents were reviewed. In the last 12 months, we can see that the activity had ramped up because over half of the entire activity in the last 27 months has been in the last 12 months. So if we look at 21,000 documents downloaded over 27 months, you can see that half of them roughly were in 12 months. So it's been ramping up over time. So that was aggregate data that's available on downloaded and viewed leading practices at a high level, but let's drill down a bit further. When we look at the top specific 15 documents that are most frequently downloaded, we see that they span similar topics to those of the AHA discussions. They include inspection readiness, technical oversight, including trial master file oversight, and provider qualification materials. So let's dive into the discussions around these documents that were downloaded and active in the AHA community. The most frequent discussions were tied to these 4 topics, so we're going to look at each of them individually. The first topic is associated with trial master file challenges. The number of conversations in AHA that were associated with TMF challenges is 17, and they're all separate individual discussions that got started. The primary tool associated with trial master file challenges is our text tool 18, which is titled TMF eTMF Oversight. It was the 4th most frequently downloaded leading practice in the library. Let's look at some representative discussions that had a lot of activity around this topic. Often the topic will start with a specific question, but it may evolve in other directions, as you will see in some of our discussion threads. In this case, someone asked, what are companies doing to address regulatory expectations to access a complete eTMF, including records located outside the TMF? We had one big pharma chime in saying that they're evaluating options to link other systems from within the eTMF. Another big pharma representative said that they require all of the content to come into the TMF. And for any content that's not in the TMF, such as for legacy trials, we have consolidated the content onto an inspection computer to mimic direct access. So we can see creative solutions that are being put forth. The topic migrated to a specific need around shipping records, whereby a big pharma 2 representative states they try to maintain the information as data and then produce a report for the TMF for it to go in at the end of the study. So some of these challenges are addressed in the text tool 18 for TMF oversight. Here are 2 screenshots of that tool. It was originally authored in August of 2016 and was fully updated in August of 2018. The text tool 18 for TMF oversight was split, and we pulled out of that document a specific document to address industry and regulatory landscape. And the text tool 18 is a 17-page guide document for providing effective oversight, including different approaches for setting up your TMF, as well as oversight during the planning stage, the ongoing trial stage, and study closeout stage. 18A, text tool 18A, addresses all of the industry and regulatory landscape issues, and that is a 9-page guide that introduces you to many sources of regulatory feedback and advice. Let's look at another discussion around this topic. This one is on how to collaborate with CROs on completeness and consistency of eTMF. An Avoca subject matter expert chimed in regarding part of the AQC quality agreement that addresses this topic and then provides an excerpt of part of that quality agreement template. Another Avoca SME shared their knowledge regarding use of a dedicated resource and regulatory expectations. And you'll notice that different people are viewing these conversations because you can see that people are sometimes chiming in saying they like the response. In this case, there were 3 likes on that feedback. Further contributions were made from 2 big pharma and 1 medium pharma representative. A big pharma representative provided their suggestions for the sponsor and CRO to establish a documentation plan. Big Pharma 2 brings up a question about periodic system reports. A medium pharma representative offers another piece of advice regarding overall TMF ownership. And an additional person from Big Pharma 1 provides input about metrics, expected performance, regular reviews, and communicating results. Part of this discussion referred to a top leading practice in the library, namely the AQC Quality Agreement template. It is the second most frequently downloaded leading practice in the library with 180 downloads and 95 views. In this view of that agreement, a section is highlighted that addresses some of the line of this discussion, particularly around third-party vendors and suppliers, and a section around TMF oversight. This template was made available for download for all of you who registered for this webinar. So this was a benefit Avoca provided to you for participation. Here is another discussion that got started by one of the AQC technical service providers. They asked, what should an eTMF consist of and how should it be structured? And Avoca SME was able to offer up links to 3 valuable resources that included an MHRA guidance, the DIA reference model, and another reference model. A small pharma company chimes in on which reference model they use, and a big CRO also shares their perspective, mentioning the DIA model as the industry standard. And since CROs work with many sponsors, CROs are in a position to know what is an industry standard based on the usage amongst their clients. A big biotech joins in and shares some detail about the reference model, specifically about having 11 zones and 245 artifacts. This contributor also provides options for amending the reference model with an associated rationale. This discussion was related to preparing certified copies of original documents for the TMF. Specifically, a question was presented, has anyone figured out a process on how to certify a copy of the original document? And Avoca SME was able to provide a link to a process that is available in the public domain. This got a like, and someone from Big Pharma added to the conversation regarding what they call a true copy verification workflow. Now, this discussion ended here. However, it's feasible and possible for the representative from that small pharma company to contact that Big Pharma representative and to have an offline conversation around what is a true copy verification workflow to get more background, so enabling further collaboration. The activity that occurred in this discussion created awareness within Avoca that we might consider providing more detail to support members on this topic of certified copies of original documents. So when the technical oversight tool for TMF oversight was updated this year, we researched and expanded upon this topic as is shown in the screenshots here. Content from an MHRA workshop was included, and this actually came from an AQC member's recommendation. Also, a flow diagram was added that is expanded here. So as it relates to pre-competitive collaboration, all participants that contributed to these discussions were able to advance their knowledge, and an AQC leading practice was refreshed to support the interests of members. In addition, outside of these direct participants, others who followed this category of discussion were able to review it and take the knowledge back to their organizations, thereby sharing the learning and perhaps driving efficiencies and improving the quality of their TMS. And isn't this the benefit we get when we collaborate in a pre-competitive way? So let's look at another very active discussion topic, in our online community, that of inspection readiness. There were 16 separate conversations in AHA about inspection readiness. It was the second most active topic in the online community. The high level of interest shown is mirrored by the high level of activity in downloading AQC leading practices that support inspection readiness. The #1 most frequently downloaded leading practice in the entire library is document INSP02, which is a cross-functional inspection preparation tool, which has 169 downloads. But interest didn't stop there because there were 5 other inspection readiness documents that were in the top 15 that were very actively downloaded, and they are shown in this list here. This topic is one of the more active ones for the consulting work that Avoca does to assess inspection readiness and provide inspection preparation and support through mock inspections. So let's take another look at a conversation in AHA. This conversation was the most active discussion of all discussions in the online community, with 15 independent exchanges across 6 different participants. A medium pharma representative asked about centralization of inspection management. A big pharma representative responded about being decentralized and exploring centralization. This was followed by an affirmation by that first company, and an Avoca subject matter expert provided their experience and observations, bringing up a hybrid model and a key success factor. This line of discussion evolved a bit to incorporate an inquiry about using an overarching SOP versus embedding inspection readiness into existing SOPs. The Avoca SME responded regarding the elements of a well-defined process if placed in a central SOP based on prior experience. A discussion ensued regarding leadership roles, and a CRO chimes in about centralization and how it drives consistency. The discussion migrates whereby a medium biotech representative asks about a preparation process and process mapping. That triggers the Avoca SME to share a tool, which is INSP08, which is the inspection preparation guide, which offers process mapping. The medium biotech rep brings up the need for a checklist. The Avoca SME comes up and offers up 2 more optional tools, inspection tool 09 and 02. 09 is an annual compliance assessment plan process, and INSP02 is a cross-functional inspection preparation tool. A different medium pharma representative jumps in to share that they are using different components from Avoca to build inspection readiness into their processes from study startup, which allows for ongoing inspection readiness. So based on that chain of discussion, I am sharing with you a leading practice that addresses some of the challenges that were under that discussion. This one, which is mentioned in the exchanges on AHA, is INSP08. It is the 8th most frequently downloaded leading practice. This tool is a guide that a sponsor and CRO can use to agree on how to prepare for inspection readiness. This guide offers a process not just for inspection readiness, but also for ongoing GCP compliance across the planning phase, the ongoing trial phase, through to study closeout. It also offers up process maps for coordinating the inspection, for managing document requests, and for the interview process. Also, this last discussion mentioned the value of having a checklist. This also is available in the AQC Knowledge Center via the tools shown here. This is INSPO2, which is a cross-functional inspection preparation checklist. This is available in the Knowledge Center and is the #1 most frequently downloaded tool in the entire library. It offers checklists across all functional areas and inspection topics. So the topic around organization and personnel, there's a checklist for what you should be thinking about to have available for the inspection. About clinical trial registries, about clinical investigator sites, trial master files, pharmacovigilance, biostatistics, IT systems. Each one of these has a checklist offered. So let's drill down. For example, the topic of external service providers. This checklist has a set of instructions with links to other tools that support inspection readiness for this specific inspection topic, as shown. So you can see here in green a wide range of materials you can tap into for inspection readiness and preparation for external service provider compliance. And here is a sample of the checklist if you look further down in that page. So it triggers you to think of certain things. Do you have a list of the ESPs used throughout the trial, and can you provide contact information? Do you have documentation on the assessment, selection, and qualification of providers? Do you have a list of the SOPs utilized by the external service providers? Do you have evidence of external service provider management and oversight? Do you have a list of any of the audits of those providers or quality assessment visits? Let's look at another conversation around inspection readiness. This one is related to an AQC Big Pharma representative facing a China FDA inspection. An Avoca SME responded at a high level and then reached out to others for additional experience from AQC members. In doing that, the Avoca SME was able to sanitize what was learned and share advice in much greater detail, as is shown here. Consistent with that discussion, we can connect the dots to additional leading practice content in the AQC library. Under the Inspection Readiness Center, there are inspection readiness grids that offer industry intelligence from the perspective of 6 health authorities, as shown across the top here, and also from member experiences, where they confidentially share the experience with Avoca, and then we will anonymize or sanitize it and place it in the Knowledge Center. This specific guide is grid is one of 4 different grids that are available for members. And this one is focused on what's called agency focus. The topics that the agencies focus on are listed to the left on this screen. We can select or deselect the health authority of interest, and then we can expand along here with these topics sections for viewing specific details. We can see that there's a lot of good advice available for the person who had questions in AHA about China FDA inspections. Now we can shift the topic to risk management challenges that have surfaced as discussions in AHA. There have been 9 discussions about managing risk. The most frequently downloaded leading practice associated with risk management is the risk management template. This has been downloaded 68 times. The topic of risk management is one of the most active ones for consulting work that Avoca does in order to assess client risk management approaches, how they're captured in SOPs, evaluating and closing gaps, and seeking compliance to ICH E6R2. To illustrate some of the risk management discussion, This discussion was started by a big CRO representative to collaborate on the most common risk indicators that are used in RBM models, or risk-based monitoring models. A big biotech representative responded with some very specific things to consider, mentioning first, second, third, and final suggestions in nice detail. A big pharma representative provided a very valuable list of sample risk factors to consider to determine where additional monitoring support may need to be applied or where an audit should be considered. So these members are very actively sharing very rich content with each other to help each other, again, for collaborative reasons, and clearly this can help all companies in advancing their needs as it relates to reducing risk and to drive efficiencies and other key benefits that come out of collaborative, pre-competitive collaboration. Let me share with you another risk management discussion. This one is associated with vendor qualification using risk-based approaches. This question was posted by a representative from Big Pharma, and a fairly detailed response was shared from a big biotech representative to suggest what to look at or consider as part of that risk-based approach. I'm going to share with you two of the risk management leading practices that are part of the Knowledge Center. First is a screenshot of the risk management plan template, which is the most frequently downloaded risk management tool. This template is populated by the user, and various additional AQC risk management templates are appended to it, as seen in the next slide. This leading practice template ties to the second AHA conversation regarding risk-based approaches for vendor qualification. This is a template that applies a quality by design approach to assess provider risk, such that a risk profile number is determined for each provider based on the services, the deliverables and activities, and what could go wrong. You use a rating scale, as shown here, for the severity, occurrence, and detection of failure, and then identify, do the math, and develop a risk profile number that helps you in prioritizing your approaches. Lastly, let's look at another highly active topic among AQC members, which is the topic of provider qualification challenges. The number of conversations in AHA associated with provider qualification was 27. It is the most active topic in AHA amongst AQC members. This topic is another one of the most active ones for the consulting work that Avoca does to assess provider qualification practices, current documentation, and identifying gaps and risks and proposing solutions to those gaps. In some cases, incorporating diligence as a platform for part of the solution to those gaps. The most frequently downloaded leading practice for provider qualification, in fact, the most frequently downloaded practices, are all associated with core requirements that are shown in this list. We will take a look at these leading practices after viewing some related AHA conversations. This line of questioning is associated with vendor audit reports. I'm sorry. This one is associated, this discussion was started by a medium pharma representative who was inquiring about delegation of vendor qualification to a CRO. This has become a very important topic, especially in light of ICH E6R2, section 5.2.2, whereby a sponsor should ensure effective oversight of activities transferred to another party, including subcontracted activities by that party. 4 different member representatives provided their advice. According to one big pharma representative, delegation is employed by them provided that the CRO has an acceptable vendor assessment program. A small pharma agrees with this approach, and a medium biotech also agrees, stating that they evaluate the CRO's diligence to that assessment and selection process. a small biotech asks about going out to audit subcontractors, and that line of questioning can be seen in the next exchange. This line of questioning is associated with vendor audit reports when delegating vendor qualification to a CRO, where one company responds to and endorses the use of a quality agreement that stipulates a sponsor right to audit any subcontractor providing primary endpoint or key safety data. A third contributor, in this case a CRO, raises an issue of client confidential information, making the CRO unable to share their audit reports of their subcontractors, which certainly makes sense. Now let's look at some of the top leading practices that have been downloaded from the Knowledge Center related to this topic. The second most frequently downloaded provider qualification leading practice was, let's go first with the most frequently downloaded qualification leading practice was the core RFI template. This is a questionnaire that is sent out to providers for them to complete as part of qualification. Here is a screenshot of the table of contents and one of the first few pages. As shown in the core RFI table of contents, there is a section dedicated to management of third parties that can be used to gather critical information about these practices implemented by a provider to assess their ICH E6 R2 compliance in managing subcontracted providers. The second most frequently downloaded provider qualification leading practice was the core standards. These AQC industry standards for provider qualification are called core because they apply to all clinical service providers and address requirements such as privacy and data protection, 21 CFR Part 11, and document management, as well as many others. The core standards are the basis of all questions in the core RFI questionnaire that was shown on the previous slide. And third-party management standards is one of the 16 categories of AQC qualification standards. These standards are carefully mapped to various regulations and guidelines, and as was brought out in the AHA conversations, there is this specific section that addresses third-party management. This screenshot shows only 2 of the 8 standards for third-party management, but you can see how they are mapped to regulations and guidance. The third most frequently downloaded provider qualification leading practice was the core visit checklist. And this list also maps back to the core AQC standards for provider qualification. This template is helpful for when you decide to do an on-site qualification visit. The template helps for both preparation for the visit as well as execution. We now want to introduce a polling question to understand our audience members' challenges to help set direction for the AQC in the future. So you will see that will pop up on your screen. Of the following 7 items, what are the top 3 major challenges you are facing within your organization at this time? Is it ensuring our QMS system complies with a new ICH E6 R2 guidance? Is it systematically implementing risk management practices, including tolerance limits? Is it ensuring inspection readiness at all times? Is it ensuring provider qualification practices measure up to regulatory expectations? Is it applying new industry practices such as patient engagement or use of wearable devices? Is it ensuring that your clinical sites are high quality and compliant to regulations? Or is it related to training our staff on quality and compliance? Okay, so we're seeing the numbers coming in. I'm going to give you a bit more time to allow you to provide input. Okay, we're starting to see the results coming in. There's a little bit of a delay for me to get them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and suggest we close the poll. Mike, I guess I'll close the poll.
I'll take care of that, Jen.
Okay, sorry, I think I had already hit it. So that we can get the data to come up. Now, we specifically came up with these 7 topics because these are the ones that we hear our members talking about quite a bit. And so that is the reason why we want to understand from our members which ones seem to be troubling each of you the most. And I can't tell, is that the final? Okay, so let me, Mike, will this come up as a different graph or this graph? Okay, so what I'm seeing here is, I'm not able to scroll forward. There we go. Okay, so it looks like the top one is systematically implementing risk management practices such as quality tolerance limits. And then it looks like it's fairly evenly split across A, C, and D, which is related to having a compliant quality management system compliant to ICH, ensuring inspection readiness at all times, and ensuring provider qualification practices measure up. Oh, actually, boy, it's really widespread out. Training on staff on quality and compliance is actually high up there as well. So it looks like it is blending pretty widely across all of these topics, which was actually something that was expected. Okay. So the objectives of this webinar was to share the advantages of pre-competitive collaboration in pharma R&D to support regulatory compliance, to advance quality, reduce risks, standardize, drive efficiencies, and reduce costs. We shared with you 2 AQC platforms that support that collaboration, namely the online community called AHA and the AQC Knowledge Center. We looked at selection of the most active and richest conversations in the online community and tied them to the most frequently applied AQC leading practices. And we did that across 4 specific topic areas where we're seeing a lot of challenge discussions. The AQC as a leader in pre-competitive collaboration in the pharma R&D industry is helping Avoca to achieve her mission, which is to have a positive impact on all clinical trials by helping clinical research companies increase quality, ensure compliance, and improve efficiency so that medicines can reach patients faster. So we will now address any questions that you may have. Please use the Q&A function to submit those questions. And while you're doing that, I just want to give you a reminder on a couple of things. I want to remind you to join us for tomorrow's AQC Knowledge Center. We have an open demo at 11 Eastern Time. If you go to our website under News and Events, you can get a link directly to that event or that session. Also, after this webinar, you will be asked to complete a brief survey, and your feedback is very important to us to help us deliver the most meaningful and relevant content in future webinars. We also have some upcoming conferences and webinars that are shown on this screen, so we hope you will be noting those and following up on them, and those are also listed in our website under News and Events. So at this point, I want to see if there are any questions that have come in that I can answer. I'm not hearing anything, and I'm going to check to see if we can find. I don't see Lisa.
Can you hear me, Janice?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I will read the first question. It is, what are the biggest industry challenges that the AQC sees from its compiled knowledge bases?
The biggest challenge, well, that may be up to the, in the eye of the beholder. From my perspective, I'm going to base that on a lot of the requests that come into us for help. And those seem to be around the topic of applying risk-based approaches. Many companies have not routinely applied those. They know that regulatory authorities are asking, not just asking, highly encouraging the use of these approaches, but they're not written into their SOPs. And so they're very much uncertain how to manage incorporating these kinds of approaches in a systematic way across their quality management systems. And so that is something, especially things like setting, how do you set quality tolerance limits? What are the differences between those and key risk indicators? And so all of that around ICH E6R2 compliance and risk-based approaches seems to be something that's really challenging members. And we don't see a lot of inspection activity yet to give us that feedback loop on what they're looking at and what they're expecting. We know through guidelines what they're expecting, but we hope that any of our members that actually experience inspections where they are systematically asked about their risk-based approaches, we can then learn from those experiences and then share that back with members. So I think that is probably one of the most challenging areas. But at the fall meeting that we had with the AQC about 2 weeks ago, I have to say that I heard a lot of discussion about application of new approaches, especially around the use of wearables. There's a lot of questions about how do you qualify a provider for wearables. A lot of these companies are very new to the industry and don't understand GCP compliance and 21 CFR Part 11. And so I think there's some concerns around that. So those are the things that I've been hearing most recently. Inspection readiness is very often at the top of the list, especially for smaller organizations that have a single asset and are not accustomed to inspection. So we hear a lot from them on that. Any other questions?
Okay. Yes, Janice, there is another great question here. It is, how does the Avoca Quality Consortium manage or address the transition from knowledge and guidelines to implementation in everyday practice?
Well, okay, so how do we manage? I think that's how do we help our members to manage that transition? So through the Knowledge Center, obviously we have a lot of leading practices. As members sign on to become new members, we put them through a pretty thorough, what I call orientation process to help create awareness of what is available to them. And obviously no one's going to dive into looking at all 450 leading practices right away. So what we talk about during orientation sessions is, where do you feel you have weaknesses? Where do you want to focus on overcoming challenges that are specific to your organization? And then we guide them through that to looking at the leading practices that are available to them. And in some cases in those orientation sessions, if questions surface, we may take those questions out of that orientation session and put them into the AHA online community so that we can hear how other companies are transitioning from, I guess, general knowledge to application. And so those are really what Avoca is doing to help make that possible. Now, we have had case studies that have been presented by AQC members where they do talk about application of the various guidelines that are in the leading practices. And so those case studies are available also in the Knowledge Center if folks want to search them by topic, or if you want to ask us about that, we can perhaps guide you to any of those. Any other questions?
Okay. Yes, there are still more questions coming in. The next question is there any concern about confidentiality as it relates to asking and sharing information in the AHA online community?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, we get that quite a bit. Let me start by saying we have not had any issues or heard of any companies within the AQC having issues. The AQC member agreement contains a confidentiality provision which protects all members, but we also provide advice and guidance about appropriate use. Now, a few of our companies, AQC member companies, have their own kind of rules of engagement or internal processes in place that they inform their members. If you're going to ask questions or contribute, then these are what our rules are. And in addition, beyond confidentiality, some of the rules like Avoca has is that because some AQC members are vendors, we specifically prohibit any commercial promotion within the online community because that is definitely not collaboration. That doesn't have a place there. Any other questions? I think we have one more minute.
Okay, yeah, I think you can answer this next question pretty quickly. It is, how many people per company can be granted access to the AQC Knowledge Center as part of membership?
Yeah, we get that question a lot too. Access, as a paid member, access is unlimited. So all employees within your company can be given access rights. And to go a step beyond that, once you have access to those materials, you can use those materials with any of your partners. So if you're working with a CRO that is not an AQC member, it's still okay for you to take those tools and use them with your partners. So it really gives you a lot of freedom there. Okay, I see we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everyone for joining us. This session has been recorded. If there are other questions that haven't been answered, we will address them offline. And I want to thank everybody for attending. So thank you and have a good rest of your day.